Hi, I'm Allison Snow, lead digital producer here at Portable. With us today is one of our co-founders of Portable, Simon Goodrich. We also have senior legal designer, Luke Thomas, and senior developer, Andy Killam. Simon will be taking us through the history of the project and how it came to life. Luke and Andy are going to give an overview of the platform and how it was designed and how it works. And finally, Simon will share the future vision of the product. Please feel free to send questions through the QA chat during the presentation, and we'll answer these at the end of the session.
Thank you, Alison, and thanks everyone for attending today. We are excited to sort of go a bit more in depth into a project and product we've been working on for upwards of 3 years now. Just as a bit of backdrop, we're Portable. We're a team of 42 designers, developers and researchers based here in Melbourne. And the mission of Portable, next slide please, it derives is to seek out areas across social media and policy opportunity to create transformational change using research, design and technology. Since we were established 15 years ago, we've worked in many areas in terms of trying to improve the experience for those that interact with services. And as a business, we have a vision of a world where government works and services exceeds the expectations of its citizens. What really interests us in this realm is that in many cases within, I guess, government technology, GovTech or DemTech, there aren't necessarily the competitive forces that operate within the commercial world. So a lot of the innovations and changes that we've seen with the rise of the internet over the last 15 to 20 years aren't necessarily those that are being aligned to what's happening to how we get services in one of the main components we have in our life. Since 2012, we've been on a journey to make justice human-centered across Australia. In the realm, I guess, of what we see as sort of social need and policy opportunity, justice very much stood out to us as an area of looking to make change. And it was actually back in 2012 where I had the pleasure of meeting then the director of the Neighbourhood Justice Centre here in Collingwood, the same suburb we're in Melbourne, where she ran through a bit of a use case of her court, where initially we were thinking of coming in to talk about doing a web build, many things that we've been doing in the past. The conversation very quickly turned to her talking about how she could make her court more like an Apple store, in the sense of being able to have a seamless experience about when someone's coming into interacting with the broader judiciary. And this really lit a fire for us in terms of thinking of bringing those skill sets of design, technology into this realm, especially in an area which hadn't at that stage necessarily had much in the way that was necessarily user-centered or in the way that technology was being implemented, and really got us thinking about what role we could play with people within the broader work to do this. So over that 8-year journey, we've had the pleasure of working with upwards of 30 different justice agencies around Australia and beyond, as well as also look to develop products that are in terms of improving that experience for end users. So the initial work that we did with Kerry was in the developing the initial family violence intervention order and shifting that online, which was put forward in the Royal Commission recommendations into family violence in Victoria back in 2016. And led us also to look at other parts of that journey, both before and after the day of court in a project we developed called Your Case, and also in terms of wayfinding in the courtroom itself, which is something that we've been operating and working with Court Services Victoria now for the past 3 years. But through this discovery process and through the active R&D work that we as an organisation do, we started to see, well, what are some of the ways that we can start to identify high volume, low complexity matters that could actually be working towards getting some of these matters out of court full stop. And it really got us starting to think about some of the use cases that we could consider to provide more opportunity for people that work within the judicial system to have time back, and also to provide services to citizens and Australians in ways that they want and ways that they would expect in other areas. You can go to the next slide. And this led us to a research and development piece of work we're looking into dispute resolution, specifically through some chats we were having with the broader Fair Work Commission at the time about that idea and getting an understanding of the amount of matters, especially more simple matters, that are going through that potentially could be resolved by people without the need for mediators and without the need for lawyers. And we worked through a research and development phase in the process that we do within the organisation of really trying to get an understanding of that user perspective, originally looking at things such as around car disputes, or would it be in terms of residential disputes, and about what some of the use cases that people would look at and do. And as many of you know, this wasn't necessarily new. There'd been technology in this space for the better part of this century. However, putting that and reflecting on it from a user-centered side was something at Portable that really interested us. Sorted now led to us to develop ODI, which was a sort of next iteration, and that idea of now we're shifting more into the realm about couples that are separating. And then lastly, working towards the work that we've partnered with National Legal Aid, and specifically through the Legal Services Commission of South Australia, in the development of amica, which is what we'll be speaking to today. So if we go to the next slide again, the background is that we've had the pleasure of working with Legal Services Commission of South Australia under the stewardship and vision of their CEO, Gabrielle Canny, and senior executives, Jake Benici and David Mazzoni. And through that support, both from National Legal Aid and the Attorney General's Department, who also saw that need about creating simple, cost-effective and innovative ways to negotiate family law issues online, with a shared view of how do we then move the low complexity, high volume matters and putting them more in the hand and agency of citizens and end users themselves to get them to resolve these issues. And this really led us to, as a backdrop to what we've been working on today. Now I'd like to pass over to Luke to take us on forward.
Cool. All right, thanks, Simon. So my name's Luke Thomas. I'm a legal designer here at Portable. I've been on this project for the past 2 years, so pretty much as long as it's been going formally as this kind of amica legal aid product. And what really excites me about it is coming out of law school and seeing a lot of very dense legal information and a lot of situations where people could have helped themselves if the information were presented more clearly, if there was a step-by-step process, and if there was more information presented to them that meets their needs. People could have actually handled a lot of the things I was studying in law school themselves and been more empowered to do so. So being able to create this mobile-first tool that helps people within this kind of amicable couple situation who want to file these documents in the family court be able to do them themselves was really exciting for me. So amica is that kind of mobile-first tool that was kind of its set up in its conception to make it more accessible to people across more devices. And it's meant to help these separating couples who want to create property settlements, which in this case means a fair division of your assets following a separation, or parenting arrangements. So either informal or formal documents kind of outlining how they want to raise their children and co-parent together going forward. And what's really unique about this tool and what I like about it is the co-design process led us to be able to provide legal information and legal process referrals, step-by-step guides to people in ways that meet their need based off of what we learned from them doing user testing. And it was also co-designed with the family lawyers at LSC really explicitly and had a lot of really great inputs. Been able to work with more technical part of their team and making sure we meet the legal requirements, but also having a lot of support from their plain English legal contents people who've really helped us to provide information in a way that it gives people what they need in the way that they need it. And it's been kind of backed and supported and presented to lots of members of the courts and the Attorney General as well, Christian Porter. So it's been a really exciting project to work on. Over that 2 years, starting in 2018, there's a lot of ongoing talk about reforms in the family law. There was the Australian Legal Reform Commission's inquiry into family law. There was huge backlogs and just a clear need to investigate different ways to provide alternative pathways for people, especially people that shouldn't be sitting in that queue, who could actually resolve things themselves if they had another way of doing it. So that led to some funding becoming available for online dispute resolution being used to help couples who are separating or divorcing. Legal Services Commission did a great job of picking up on this and throwing the concept and creating the concept with us and bringing it to us. In the background, as Simon mentioned, we were already interested in working on ODR workflows and kind of doing R&D to how to resolve disputes amicably online and creating prototypes and thinking about things like fencing disputes or Fair Work Commission disputes, but bringing that to, having LSC bring that to us with the family court was really interesting. From there, we created this partnership, began working with lawyers at LSC and developed a proof of concept prototype. So it was an early version of this, as Simon showed you before, called ODI, that was tested with users and shown to be able to get through these workflows. It didn't actually have the document creation or a lot more limited features than before, but it was enough to show that this could be a thing that we could do and that users definitely wanted to have it. So it was able to secure more funding from the Commonwealth, and we were able to form both an internal project team at Portable, people just dedicated to working on this for the past year, and at LSC, as well as more involvement from all legal aid bodies and a lot more of really great collaboration between the different jurisdictions. So from July to December last year, we were able to design and test with people who had gone through the process. So both in Adelaide with people who had gone through the initial research and expressed the desirability for this tool and who had gone through and created agreements. We also tested in Melbourne with people who had either broken up and were going through this process, or hadn't broken up but were considering what would happen if they did. So things like that. It was really great to get all those kind of different viewpoints from people. And finally, this year, we've been able to pilot legal aid, pilot across all the legal aid jurisdictions, beginning in February with just a South Australia only release, opening up to more jurisdictions as we progressed. We began with informal agreement documents, so giving people the ability to enter their information, providing them with a platform to reach agreements, and then recording it in kind of not quite a contract setting, but more of just a record of their agreement so they have something to fall back on if they ever have a dispute in the future. But due to the next round of releases, and after the June 30 launch by the Attorney General just recently, we were able to release something that actually gives them the ability to complete a draft application for consent orders, which is the legal document that you'd file with the family court. So this is really big for people because it gives them the ability to kind of have a platform that guides them through the document creation process. So they're a bit more confident in the document that they create will actually get accepted by the courts and provide some kind of assurance and a way to move forward with their breakup. And so since June 30, I think in just something like 10 days or maybe 2 weeks, we saw over 550 matters, which is an account. An account has 2 people, so that's maybe approximately 1,000 people have signed up already. So it's been getting a lot of really great attention and a lot of good work being done, a lot of need being met there, which is great. So I think what we're going to do now is I'm going to walk through the stages of the process, especially the more early information gathering and legal information providing stages. And then I'm going to hand over to Andy, who's going to talk about how the asset division part works and also how to create documents through the app. So like Simon mentioned, we wanted to create an app that meets a lot of their commercial expectations that the users may have. So part of this is, if you're using MyGov, it was not really commercial, but it's still a very well-known product that people are using and they like to use. They want to know their information secure. So part of this is using mobile phone verification. We also have email verification to try to ensure the users are who they say they are and that they're authorized to use that device. From there, once they sign up, or before they sign up, actually, they're going through this onboarding carousel where they can look at the contextual information for the sign-up process and try to figure out if the service is right for them. So we try to condense what would already be on a lot of existing pamphlets or brochures about what is this process and also what do I get out of the app, and provide it in more of an informal way. We also introduce one of our design principles, which is progressive disclosure. So you can choose to swipe through the carousel if you're the kind of user that doesn't really care about the details, or there's little buttons throughout and help text, like this one says, what is a consent order? So if more information is needed, it's not all there cramming your screen. There's not that information overload. There's just the right amount of information for the user at the time, or we can pop up and provide a bit more content if needed. Like I mentioned, we have 2-factor authentication. So we have a little extra layer of security for people. And this was really tested with people to kind of determine what their balance is between making sure we don't have power imbalances or issues with people using each other's devices, but also making sure it's not too onerous to sign up. So it was a user-tested process. From there, once you enter the app, another design principle we have is that collaboration is really key to getting this done. This can't be a one-sided process. So each step along the way, there needs to be agreement between both parties. And this begins with the invitation. We also wanted to balance that provision of information and make sure everyone's on the same page. So we crafted the welcome emails and the guides along with the lawyers at Legal Services Commission. So there's a lot of links to another web page that they developed separately that kind of provides more information in the process or referral or help if you need it. From there, users can decide if Amica is right for them or if they've looked at the landing page and decided they actually probably should see a lawyer or go to some other service, that all those links are available to them as well. What you're looking at here is the dashboard. Once you've logged into the app, you have different cards or sections that you create. So there's the relationship facts that you agree on, your income, your health status, which matters for future earnings. So these kind of legal requirements, as well as when your relationship began and ended, since these are all really important to the outcome of the document. They're all things that people work on and agree together. It's also matching their kind of mobile design needs by providing different aspects of the dashboard, like the agreement tab at the bottom that can pop up and be viewed, or profile information where users expect it as well. So just trying to merge that legal document with kind of a commercial app. So the key to the collaboration section is to take these long forms. There's an existing DIY kit from the family court that has all of the questions and information that's needed, but it's 50+ page PDF. So trying to get that and break it down into smaller conversational questions that one user can go through and answer and give the information that's needed. The other person can review it, and if there's a disagreement, provide a message. So while they're creating the statements, you have these kind of conversational questions and different user interface elements to help them speed up the collection of data process. So things like calendar pickers, the ability to scroll through different options, multi-select options. So a lot of very varied input ways. As I mentioned before, there's trying to keep the text minimal on the screen. So we're presenting only the required information. And if you want to know more about, okay, what do you mean by data separation, which can be a very fraught legal issue. If you work in family law, you know that there can be entire court hearings just about what the data separation is. So we try to provide more information as needed. And yeah, try to just keep it conversational and keep that kind of contextual information throughout the process. Another way that we like to make sure the parties are kind of reaching agreements and finding that middle point or referring to facts and evidence is by giving them that platform that lets them upload facts or evidence to kind of support their argument as needed. And one of those is maybe on your property or in your car section. When you're filling out the value, you can also either take a photo or select a PDF of your car registration or your car valuation or your property title. And this kind of provides that factual base and helps prevent ongoing disputes around what matter, what the value would be. Yeah, so each of these sections will form into statements that can be reviewed on or collaborated and revised as needed. So there's a lot of different elements there that they can go back and edit. As things change, you may need to update something and send each other messages. So it just provides that asynchronous platform to share information and collaborate, which we found really resounded with users because they wanted to be able to do it in their own time, return to it. If there's been a lot of progress from the other person who's been filling out a lot of cards, you'll get an email sent to your email address that you registered letting you know, hey, there's been these updates, maybe have a look. And so that kind of keeps the conversation going and helps them to reach agreement. So in creating that dialogue with both parties, we also opened up a messenger section under each statement. So once a series of facts is agreed upon, if the other person doesn't quite think that's right, we have a messaging part that also includes a bit of a tone analysis to make sure that we have these subtle nudges and sentiment analysis to prevent parties from being abusive or using profane language, which kind of help to maintain that neutrality and that objective mindset when they're trying to determine these facts. Because at the end of the day, you just want them to be able to fill out the form and then move on and continue to kind of fill out these little chunks to try to snowball that agreement process. So most of the screens I've showed you have been relating to property settlement, which is a lot about that process of determining value, agreeing on dates. The parenting section was a bit more challenging given that it's not about trying to find an objective way to describe how much your property is worth. It's about thinking about your future with your child. So it can be a very emotional part for people. That's why it really helped with us to user test with parents and to talk about what they were comfortable and weren't comfortable with in doing in this app. And one of the issues we were having early on was how to work out the handovers and parenting agreement, kind of the section of the parenting agreement that deals with the scheduling. And we were able to user test and design this parenting plan format with a really accessible, repeatable cycle, so people can determine, okay, generally Sunday to Tuesday are my days, Wednesday to Sunday are their days, and it helps them to think about, okay, how many handover situations am I creating? What kind of agreements do we need to make around these handovers? Where will we do it? Who should go? Who shouldn't go? And it was just a really kind of accessible way to get that conversation going with people. And having that visualization also helped. So not just using words and text, but seeing it across the screen was really helpful for people, and kind of give them like a real-time platform that they can have conversations about this with. Yeah, and then going through the handovers, you have these different UI elements again, just to make it really easy to pick a meeting time, select the time, agree on it. Having this handover section kind of converts what could be a very big and difficult process into little step-by-step questions. So once you agree on one thing and then the next thing is a bit easier, it kind of helps them to get through this process more quickly and easily. Yeah, so that's the parenting section, which leads to a separate agreement. But if we're going back and thinking about the property section, so once a person's gone through and they've completed all the necessary statements, maybe they've done just the property section, maybe they've done parenting and property, you can move on into the total division of assets, which is a really big part of the app, because now it's just listing how things are. But the difficulty is now you have to talk about how are things going to be. So in the future going forward, we're going to have this division of our total assets. And one thing that LSC came to us with is this idea that people, they can work out what they want, but what they come to lawyers or mediators for often is just an objective benchmark. So what is the range of fairness? You don't have to tell me what exactly I should do, but just let me know, if I want 40%, is that unreasonable? Is it reasonable? So we were able to do this by building a data set with family lawyers, by showing them a lot of like just multiple scenarios and kind of going through these different ways to think of these agreements. So we were able to develop an AI platform that provides an automated suggested division based off of the user's input. So after they've entered information about their income, their maybe their car loans, what they brought to their relationship, what their superannuation balance is, we're able to use those variables and put them into a machine learning algorithm to try to come up with an objective benchmark for the beginning of their negotiation. So this isn't a, you must accept this decision. This is just a starting point for what's considered fair. And then from there, there's a whole negotiation process around it. And again, throughout this, we're keeping the same design principles of fairness. Both users have the same information given to them. They have the same ability to affect the negotiation, and also have the same referral points. They have the same kind of, if they need to be triaged to somewhere else or see more information about the process, it's all there through the app as well. So what this process looks like is the initial screen provides the amica suggestion, and then from there you can use the slider to maybe move it around a bit to something you think is more fair. So kind of create your own offer and interact with that interface. If you really go out of bounds, so if you decide that even though 40% was the objective benchmark, I think I'm worth double that, so I'm 80%, we also want to provide that same kind of guidance and nudging for these kind of out of bounds predictions. Just like with the statements, we think collaboration is really key to this process, and also being open, honest, and articulating your reasons. So we want people to give their rationale for why they think an offer is fair before they're able to send something. The offer is sent to the other party, but just like last time, you're going to view that suggested division first. So you're going to see the amica division, and then you're going to be able to view the history, make your own offer. There's going to be all the messages and offers will be stored here in the history as you kind of have that negotiation process and go back and forth. This is for people who, some people said they just want to get it over with and they would happily suggest something to move on. Other people thought that negotiation requires at least 5 rounds and they want to kind of have that back and forth. So it's just a way to try to meet the needs of different kinds of negotiating styles. And then, yeah, from there, you can kind of continue to have these conversations and build the suggested division on the suggested division and try to reach agreement. Once that's finished, you'll have as an output the total asset division, which is of all the stuff you own, maybe 44% should go to you and 56% to your former partner. But what the next section is kind of trying to really drill down into the details of what that looks like. So actually building the plan for the step-by-step itemized asset division. And this is something Andy's been working on, and it's been a big design challenge, but even more so a development challenge. So I'm actually going to pass on to our senior developer, Andy, and he's going to go through the asset division section.
Thanks, Luke. Hi, everyone. I'm Andy Killam. I'm senior developer at Portable, and I've been working on Amica for over a year now and helping to shape it into what it is now. So as Luke said, after suggested division is complete, then we let users actually work out the split of their actual assets based on what they've entered into the app. So they can go through and they get a list of all of the sole assets as well as jointly owned assets and debts. And they also get shown the current split of their assets as well as the suggested split of the assets. From there, they can then go through and select individual assets and work through to achieve try and achieve a fair split. So users are guided through a simple process of all the assets where they can select varying options, including selling, transferring, or keeping assets and debts. All the joint assets must be assigned to make sure that the tool helps people to finalize their split of assets and there's no leftover things moving forward. And users also get a running total as they go through of who owes who what, so that we keep it very clear as we go through it so that everyone knows what's happening. As well as assigning all of the individual assets, the app also can apportion varying percentages of real estate sales to either party to try and prevent one party from owing the other party money. So instead of just splitting a sale 50% to each party of a joint property, it can actually vary those percentages and try and get the balance back to zero. If that's not possible or there's no joint assets though, then we also automatically add in a lump sum payment at the end to make sure that the owing party pays the owed party, and gets the balance back to zero. It's probably also just worth mentioning that the owing and owed parties can switch around through the process. So even if one party started out as the owing party who had more assets, by the end of it, it could actually turn out that the owed party owes the owing party money based on how they split up the assets. So we've handled some quite complex cases in there to make sure that we can allow users to divide their assets in the most fair way possible if they want to. Once a user has gone through and selected all of the assets that they want to assign and made their proposal, then they can enter in a message here, similar to how we've done it through the rest of the app, to make sure that people are getting a fair and an amicable proposal, and to make sure that people work together to actually reach agreement. And then once the proposal is sent through, then the other party can view that proposal and they can either accept it or they can make a counter proposal, they can make changes. And this really enables both parties to have a fair go at making sure that they get their voice heard, and it's an equal opportunity to split up their assets. Once the asset split is agreed to, then the app allows users to generate a range of documents. So the app, users can generate some informal documents such as the property agreement and the parenting documents, which is designed, as Luke said, to more of as a reference point moving forward for people to look back on to help avoid future disputes. But they can also choose to go through and create the full consent order application. So the full consent order application will generate the actual legal documents that users need to file in the relevant court. And the app also takes into account couples that are from Western Australia, which falls under different legislation. So the documents are slightly different, but the app can generate for anywhere in Australia, including Western Australia. Users go through, they have to fill out some additional information, which we collect through the consent order section. And then once we generate the documents, we also provide extra instructions and a filing guide to help people to achieve filing this and going through this process themselves without having to use lawyers. At the moment, we don't have e-filing, but we hope that we can introduce that in the future to simplify things even more. And that's it for me. I'll pass it back over to Simon.
Thanks, Andy, and thanks, Luke, for also running through both the design and development of the application. To the sort of question of what's next, I think, Andy, you ended on a good piece. You know, we're in discussions now because it's an agreement supported by the Attorney General and the Attorney General's Department with the Family Court of Australia about getting filing happening within their systems. And that's a process that we've been in discussions with them through the part of this year to see. And then more broadly, I think from a portable perspective, our interest is getting back to that vision and mission piece that we have in terms of providing greater agency to Australians in terms of being able to get them to resolve matters easier for themselves. So our interest is looking at other high volume, low complexity matters, whether it be in areas such as, residential tenancies or in terms of workplace disputes that give people that agency to be able to go through and either be informed of those matters or help to resolve some of those matters too. So no doubt this will probably come up in the questions, but it's probably worth noting that a lot of what we are doing here is doing with people who are amicable, people who are sort of necessarily getting along. The role that we're playing isn't necessarily by any means to be replacing that work of mediators or lawyers. We believe are working to help in that missing middle piece. And that's also, I think, what's been informed by that broader government policy from the Attorney General's Department and beyond about giving more Australians the opportunity to be able to sort these matters out themselves and provide them additional pathways. That we would know that in the sense that, you either go see a lawyer or, you have to actually go to a court. We're interested in creating additional pathways to people that are supported to be able to do that. And that sort of really aligns to the vision that I outlined at the outset and very much about the type of products and services that we here at Portable continue to create. Thanks.
Thanks, Simon, and also thanks, Andy and Luke. Now we have time to move into some questions. If you haven't seen it yet, there's a Q&A function within Zoom, so you can type in your questions there. The first question we've got, Luke, this one's probably for you. What was the user testing process like, and who did you speak with?
Yeah, so user testing began with the actual discovery research, which is the kind of piece that you do around, is this actually a good idea and do people want it before you even start building it? And we weren't a part of that. A social market research agency called Colmar Brunton was a part of that. And they spoke to, I think, around 40 people to present the idea and kind of get their thoughts on it. And then from there, we kept that kind of contact list and we're able to continually go up to Adelaide. Back when Victorians were allowed to travel to Adelaide, we would fly up there and test with people in groups of about 12 to 20. We did that 2 times in Adelaide. And then in Melbourne, we have our own kind of list of people that we can test the app with and had a couple of more rounds here. So I think in total, it would have been around 60 or so people that we consulted through these different rounds of testing. And like I mentioned before, there's some all variety of walks of life. Some people had been through a really bitter child custody process and spent somewhere around $60,000 in lawyer fees. Some people just lumped it, broke up, gave their partner some stuff, kept some stuff, and never got that kind of formal settlement that they wanted. And they never kind of felt like they had resolution. So just a whole range of people who had been through the process or not.
Thanks, Luke. Another question we have is around legal aid bodies. So what involvement did other legal aid bodies have?
Probably pass to Simon a bit on this one as well for strategy, but just in terms of the day-by-day, both information collecting for our legal database, which was a national legal aid project. So since we had the support of all the directors of national legal aid, we were able to pass on our tools for collecting that data to each jurisdiction. And in terms of testing the app, we've had a lot of really great involvement from, again, just about every jurisdiction has been a part of testing, providing feedback, and all that's been kind of managed through LSC and through national legal aid. So it's been a really great collaborative process for all legal aid bodies. And I think Simon can talk more a bit about the other players on the steering committee, but there's been a lot of interest from different kind of family relationship groups as well.
That's right. Yeah, thanks, Luke. There was sort of a broader steering committee that was established as part of the support from the Attorney General for this work, with National Legal Aid being one of those bodies, and others in the sort of family relationship services as being a component of it too. I think one thing, I guess, from the outside reflecting in, is that there aren't, as many of you would know, many opportunities that the different states and territories can be to collaborate, specifically around laws, because in a lot of cases, laws are more state or territory based. I think, apart from some slight variations in Western Australia, we're really looking at a national law here. So it was really great to see the stewardship of National Legal Aid, and through that, the work I mentioned of Gabrielle Canny, the CEO of Legal Services Commission of South Australia, to really sort of get aligned in terms of both getting support from all the different bodies, both at the state and territory level, and seeing how that can help inform, I guess, the development of this product, which effectively is for that of National Legal Aid, which is, I think, a really good opportunity.
Thanks, Simon. The next question has to do with protecting people, and maybe Luke and Andy, you can contribute to this from a legal and a tech perspective. So what safeguards do we have in place so that people don't abuse the system?
So from a technical point of view, we've got, as Luke mentioned earlier, we've got all the security factors to make sure that people are not impersonating other people, and trying to make sure that the people are who they say they are. But we also implement all of the positive and progressive messaging throughout, and encouragement to stay amicable, which helps to remind people to try and do the right thing, I guess. And finally, we do also have the Tone Cop, which is the tool that manages bad language or negative language that might be being used in the various messages being sent between the parties. So if someone does get a bit angry or upset, then the app's designed to pick that up and not allow the message to be sent, and prompt the user to maybe reword it in a more friendly way.
Yeah, that's right. So the technical things are in place. We've tried to anticipate scenarios, especially with the target audience, but of course it's the live app, so you can't control who's using it. But we really want to kind of make that the focus of our next expansion as well, is to continue to test with people who may feel that there's a platform that provides too much vulnerability, and try to develop more pathways to other providers. I think there's a lot of really great work already being done and already out there that we'd like to link to. So provide more referrals and pick up on when these situations kind of enter that danger zone, and try to refer them somewhere else.
Thanks, Luke. Thanks, Andy. The next question has to do with mediators, and it's something probably that we'll be thinking about a little bit more in the future. So the question is, how do you see the role of mediators in utilizing the platform for helping couples come to an agreement?
Yeah, so I think I'll start with this one. I think that's a really interesting part that we haven't explored thoroughly enough. It was intended to provide two people a conversational interface, a platform that they can kind of build and reach agreement on together. Maybe mediators could either fill in for one of the parties, but that's probably not the intention of the app. So I think we'd have to explore more into how to provide kind of third-party access or support. We're currently looking at ways for when parties get stuck and they can't reach agreement to provide instant video mediation. So being able to kind of book a mediator through the tool and then be able to just, get your camera open and your video recorder open and talk to a mediator and kind of work out that issue that you're having at specific points. So integrating with other tools and trying to build it out more now, because currently it is just really focused on helping two people reach agreement, not having that third-party access yet.
Thanks, Luke. The next question has to do about with the AI. And the question, this one's probably also for you, Luke, around how are we evaluating the AI in this process?
Yeah, so it's, given it's been so thoroughly shared and accessed by the different legal aid bodies, we've had ongoing conversations with them. So we co-designed it with Legal Services Commission, with their experienced family law team to talk about not only what variables are important in this decision-making process, so the income, things like that, but what range of variables do you expect to see for our users? What kind of things should we not even program into the algorithm? And then as we continue to kind of spread our testing tools out to the different legal aid bodies, just received emails and feedback and continue to improve that way. But there's also formal evaluations happening. So university, we're teaming up with the Center for Artificial Intelligence and Data Ethics to talk about an ethics framework for the platform to ensure we're not kind of doing unintentional harm and trying to provide more safeguards and QA. Currently, there's a lot of manual review of the decisions, so it's still being looked over with human eyes, but eventually we want to get it to that kind of level of accuracy where we can have that kind of confidence in it. So it's just a continued process of evaluating it with kind of external bodies like the University of Melbourne or family lawyers, and continuing to try to make improvements as we go.
Thanks, Luke. Andy, the next one is for you. What if people can't reach agreement in a certain part of the app?
So we've spent a lot of time thinking about this and discussing this, and we've designed the app with this very much in mind, knowing that even though we are targeting people who are separating amicably, there will still be a lot of cases where there might be one or two things that people just can't agree on for whatever reason. So we've tried to deal with this in a number of ways. Firstly, by separating out the property and parenting sections as much as possible, so that if users, for example, can't agree on something in property, then they could still create the parenting documents. So it still allows them to use part of the app. We've also, with the way we've done it progressively, with users being able to generate both the more informal documents all the way through to the consent order documents, we have allowed users to generate a non-legally binding document or some sort of output from the app, so that they could still then take that and move forward. And finally, if users really can't agree on something, then they also still have the option to export their current progress, which they could then use as a base to engage lawyers moving forward, so that it will save them both time and money when they can skip all of the stuff that they have agreed to, basically, and just get the lawyers involved for the other things. Yeah.
Thanks, Andy. I think we've got time for one final question, which has come through in the chat. So are there plans to make this available in other languages for users from culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds?
I'm happy to answer this one. It's something that we would be liking to look into. It isn't in our sort of short-term roadmap for what we're looking to seek with Amica, but as an organisation at Portable, we're doing a lot of work with other organisations in terms of translation of digital materials. So it is something that we would like to consider and be quite open to partnering with other bodies to assist us with as part of the process.
Thanks, Simon. And thanks to everyone for joining us today. It's been really great to be able to share this with everyone, and appreciate all the questions that have come through also.